Hi guys, how you all doing? Welcome to another video. Okay, a bit of a backstory on this one. I was a little bit cramped on time when I was doing my ladder climb last month. So when I finally do have some time to focus on grinding some games, I just keep losing the coin tosses, which is really frustrating. I needed a deck that can win game fast, and this Tenpai Skystriker deck just keep popping up at the back of my mind. Probably because I always seem to lose against it whenever I face it. So I thought, hey, I do recently got the Skystriker cards, so why not play the deck myself and see how it worked out. And I gotta tell you, I went on a complete tear with the deck, gaining like 5 rank in less than 3 hours. So yeah, now I guess I know why I keep losing when I face the deck myself, because the deck is just really good. Anyway, with the holiday season coming up, I thought of sharing my own version of the deck for those of you who have less time to climb the ladder this month and still want to have a good finish. I'll say the challenging part about the deck is more about building the correct deck list itself and less about the actual gameplay with the deck. So let me give you my general thought process for when I'm building this specific list. Let's start with the core package of the deck. We of course have the Tenpai and the Skystriker. There's really not much to say about them, they are pretty self-explanatory. Tenpai are your win card, while Skystriker provide you with a setup and a distraction. I'll say one nice thing about using the Skystriker engine right now is that people are more incentivized to use their hand trap or disruption on a card like Engage due to how popular the Skystriker deck is, which is a good thing in this deck because that means your Tenpai card has more free range. Engage is gonna fall up in this deck at some point anyway, because you're only ever gonna draw into more Bone Breaker, which loses their value if you cannot win the game with your Tenpai cards. For the Skystriker engine, I'm running the standard 3 Engage, 1 Hornet Drone, 1 Afterburner, and 2 copy of the Widow Anchor. I was running with a list that only play 1 Widow Anchor, and it was working fine, but there were a couple of games that I lost because I don't have the second Widow Anchor. So I went back and put in the second copy of it. And in the extra deck, we have 1 Kagari, 1 Amasu, 1 Zeke, and 1 Azalea, with an honorable mention of Camellia and Zero. You can run Camellia if you also run some monster stealing card like Change Apart, Mind Control, Snatch Steal, etc. to basically pseudo search for your Engage if you don't have it. All of these cards are all you are though, so not everyone can have access to them. And for Zero, it can be an extra recycle for your Engage, but it does need 2 Skystriker Ace monster to make. So if you want to use it, you're probably gonna have to run at least 2 Hornet Drone. Linkage is not gonna work for this deck because it locks you into Skystriker Ace monster only. On the Bone Breaker side, we have all of the usual suspects. These cards are the backbone of the deck, as they quite literally pave the way for you to win the game. Most of these are quite stable in the deck, and they're not gonna change in most meta. Just a small note, the Predator Trophy Overturn is a pretty good super party target in this dark meta of Mitsu, Ocus, and even White Forest. Moving on, for these 3 cards, I'm only playing 1 copy of each in my deck because they are cards that can be used only 1 time, most of the time. I do saw that a lot of lists do run more than 1 copy of each of these cards, but I don't really like that. For the triple tactic talent and thrust, activation negate is not really that common in this meta, and if they negate the effect of the card itself with let's say a card like Ash, you can't even use the other copy of the card that you have in the hand. So you're just diluting your draw for no reason. And for the Ultimate Slayer, I'm only running 1 here because I only have 1 target to send for each of the type in my extra deck. I was playing with 2 at some point, but whenever I have 2 in the hand, they become quite clunky. So for my personal playing experience, I do think that playing with only 1 of each of these is more than good enough. For some other miscellaneous cards, I am running 3 copies of Into the Void here to help fill out the grave with spells for your Engage. No need to waste your UR crafting points for Upstart Goblin, just Into the Void is good enough. Having more than 3 spells in the grave doesn't really serve a purpose, and consistency is not really a problem with this deck, cause as you can see, I'm not even running out of the Tenpai starter here, but I still have them in my hand in most of the games. Lastly, 1 copy of Red Reboot. This card has absolutely been the MVP in this deck for me. It's not just because there's a lot of deck that has back row in the meta, but it's also because this card can stop a Dominus Impulse from the hand, which is a nightmare for Tenpai. The rest of the deck is being filled by Maxi and the Mochamis. You can fix up the ratio between them depending on what you want. Of course, we are not running with any of the usual hand traps. We are mostly just want to have a lot of spell in our hand, and these do not help with that. The only exception here is Withdraw and Lockbird, just because it's very good in the current meta. But still, even with that, the card doesn't feel great to play in the deck. It is a fine inclusion, but I can also see myself replacing it with more Muchamis, or even some more spells, like maybe Pot of Desires, or Call by the Grave. And that is pretty much it, I think. If you have any question, please do let me know in the comment. The current deck list right here is definitely more tailored to this month meta, where I'm seeing a lot of Raziel and Mitsu, Skystriker, and even some Luna Light. But don't worry, with a little bit of tweak, this deck is gonna be good in the next meta, and the next meta after that, and the next, and the next. That is just the nature of a Tenpai deck in the best of one format, where you're almost always guaranteed to go second, because this archetype is just the biggest I win now archetype that has ever been printed in Yu-Gi-Oh! And look, I do get the frustration while facing the deck on ladder, and it's not because it is crazy strong or broken or whatever, but because they always seem to have the perfect card to break your board and go for lethal in the same turn. It is a very one-dimensional deck in that way. It's only really have one thing that it can do, but it is really good at doing that one thing. So this is just a good time as any to pick up the deck yourself and get those easy wins. Just don't queue into the mirror though. That would be kinda awkward. Hope you guys enjoy some replay with the deck. The full deck list is at the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good day and see you next time.